Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today in Selma Week. I'm on my way down there. We're looking at, well, civil rights, voting rights there. But, it seems like so many rights that we have taken for granted, so many programs that we have taken for granted. They're on the chopping block right now. None more than Social Security. I was listening to the president last night, and he really zeroed in on Social Security. And as you all know, I have a brother in Congress. And so he said, look, no matter what the president is saying, the cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are already baked in the cake. They're just being farmed out to other agencies. So the cuts are there. Now you've got the former commissioner of the Social Security Administration, former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley, saying, save your money. 30 to 90 days, we're going to see interruptions in the meting out of checks. There's a lot that's going on. And so I said, let me go to Alex Lawson of Social Security Works. They are our premier lobbying organization for Social Security. So let me get right to it, because I want to know what you thought of the speech and what do you think of Doge's, well, what they're doing. They want to cut half of the workforce at Social Security. I mean, I can't even begin. You know this far better than I. Help me to understand what we are looking at.
Yeah, we're in the middle of dangerous times. These aren't plans for the future, and I'm going to actually just talk about the part of the speech where he talked about Social Security, because Absolutely. There's a lot more in there. But in there, what I want people to understand is he spent 15 minutes and not a single word he said was true. It was all lies. And really importantly, they're lies that he knows are lies. Elon Musk and Donald Trump's guy at Social Security actually already said, oh, no, there's definitely not 150-year-olds getting benefits. That's ridiculous. It's debunked stuff.
360 years old? The
Exactly.
Not even that old. I mean, really?
The problem, or like what people should understand, is like, this is what authoritarians do. It's the big lie theory. So if you tell a lie that's big enough, it's just so huge that it just sort of warps people's understanding or the ability of them to actually see the facts for what's going on. So, I mean, this is tried and true tactics of authoritarians going back forever. So the brazenness of the lying was the point. He wants it out there. What is it? That Social Security is rife with fraud, waste, and abuse. There's 300-year-olds getting benefits. That's not my Donald Trump impression. I won't waste my breath on doing one of them. The point that he's trying to get across is fraud, waste, and abuse. Now, let's get the facts. Vanishingly small amounts of fraud in the Social Security system, tiny amounts of fraud and waste. All of this is targeted by what are called inspector generals, IGs. So there's a system in place. Automatically, when a person turns 115, their check is cut off, for better and worse, right? They have to go and prove that they're still alive to the agency at 115. That's a fail-safe mechanism, but it does cause hardship on the very old. But that's there, right? So literally, that's there. There's a fail-safe mechanism.
I want to drill down on that just so that people hear that one more time, because we heard so many other things last night that I want to make sure that people know that there is a cutoff point for Social Security. Please repeat that so that when people listen to this, they can refute this when they're confronted with the lie.
Automatically, currently, right now, and it has been for decades, if a person reaches the age of 115 years old, their Social Security deposits and checks automatically stop. That person needs to then prove that they're still alive to the agency. That is a fact, right? Anybody who knows anything about Social Security knows that. Now, Donald Trump and Elon Musk know nothing about Social Security other than that they want to rob it. So they don't probably know that that's how that works. But there's other things. The Inspector General's reports have laid out, there's tens of millions of dollars, tens of millions in $8 trillion of benefits going out. You're talking about tens of millions of dollars of improper payments. And some of those are people get too much benefits. Some of those are people get too little benefits. And it's all a paperwork issue. This is paperwork issues. The IG, because even though it's a vanishingly small amount in such a large system, we want to address it. So the IGs put forward a report every year that are like, hey, here's how you address it. And the primary way you address it is by putting in place more staff in the parts of the agency that correct the data, go through the database, make sure that everything is updated. You know what Donald Trump and unelected billionaire bureaucrat Elon Musk did? They fired everybody in those offices, right? So that's not what you do if you want to actually combat this. And that's after they fired all the IGs, right? If you're actually trying to go after waste, fraud, and abuse, you don't fire the cops, referees who focus on fraud, waste, and abuse. That's what you do if you want to commit fraud, which is what's going on. So there's a bunch of other things I can explain like a little bit. A lot of the stuff that he's pointing out, and he's like, look what I found. It's data entries in a database that no one has just deleted. It's not like there's a check going to someone who's in a database that is older than the country that Social Security has been around for 90 years. It's definitely not paying someone who's 350 years old. Now, there could be a cell in their incredibly old computer system that just keeps running for whatever reason by the way this system calculates dates. And I don't want to get like too boring on this, but you know what the reports say? One of the best ways to clean up the data is more money to update the system, more infrastructure to update the system, and staff to clean up the database. You know what the Doge wrecking ball did? Got rid of that. Right. So they got rid of the upgrades to the system that could actually clean up the data. All of their rhetoric is to obfuscate, to create a smoke screen around their true aim, which is what you set this up with, which is to reach into our pockets and steal our money. It's robbing Peter to pay Elon, as a great leader says currently, and I've just stolen that myself because that's what's going on. I mean, like, you have the richest man in the world. They're not even hiding it. His whole goal is to get him and his billionaires our money. And to do it, they're closing your office, your Social Security office, the Social Security office that you rely on or will rely on. At the same time, they're firing the people who answer the phones. They're like, oh, yeah, we're going to replace it with AI. Oh, you mean those things like when I try to call Facebook or one of the Silicon Valley companies, right? You can't get a human. That's by design. Mm-hmm. That's what they want to do. They want to remove this from people so that it's not functioning well. What the strategy is, and it's always the same, it's kneecap the mailman and then complain that the mail is late. And then someone always pipes up from the back and they're like, oh, I just happen to have a cousin in the private mail delivery service. So why don't we hire him and he'll do a worse job for more money? It's the same game that they're playing all across the system. But Social Security, I know Martin O'Malley. He was a great commissioner. We're very different people. Mm-hmm. When Martin O'Malley says in 30 to 90 days we're facing system collapse, I don't understand. I want to get across to people the magnitude of that. It's not the hotheads saying, hey, man, this is bad. They've already broken the system.
This is the former head of the system.
And not just him. It's the coolest policy people that I've cool-headed policy people, the people who are always like, hey, don't panic, the system is strong. And it's true. For 89 years, through war and peace, through boom and bust, through sickness and health, Social Security has not missed a single payment. The problem is, I don't think we're going to be able to say that any longer, because it survived all of that, but it's not going to survive the cuts that Elon Musk, this unelected billionaire bureaucrat, has jammed through at the behest, or I don't know who's behesting who. I can't tell in their co-presidency who's the boss, but I believe it's the billionaire. So we have...
Well, but specifically a billionaire who is big tech.
Yes.
Because it seems that they are firing these massive firings, not layoffs, firings, and they're doing it. They're firing people in such aggressive ways. It's intimidating. It's hostile. It really is not legal. You're not supposed to treat employees that way. But it seems that they want to move to automation. My brother was saying that, I was trying to figure out this AI piece, and they want everybody who has a job to be very specific about what it is that they do. He said, well, with AI, you feed it into the system, right? And you help to perfect AI. But this is very dangerous to not be able to call anyone, Alex.
Absolutely.
When you have a question, because human beings might say, hold on a minute, I'm going to work with you. I mean, because these are the most vulnerable people, among the most vulnerable people in our society. People who are elderly, people who are benefiting from, a father or mother who has passed on. I understand what is happening here. And when Martin O'Malley says 30 to 90 days, save your money, we are looking at system collapse. And he's saying it over and over and over again. And I don't hear anyone sounding the alarm about that.
So, you're sounding the alarm, and there is stuff going on. We've had close to a dozen events with members of Congress at local Social Security offices. We'll continue to do more. We need people to understand, though, that there is no cavalry coming. Politicians are not going to save us on this. It is up to us to show up, stand shoulder to shoulder, fight back against Elon Musk, and then bring politicians along with us, demand that they stop this wrecking ball. But we can't look to others to save us from what's going on. It's going to be us. And luckily, Social Security is so profound. It touches every nook and cranny of this country. I've gone around this country all over the place, and it does not matter where I am and what room I'm speaking to, camo NRA hats, red MAGA hats. I haven't talked to black MAGA hats yet, the tech bros, the broligarchy side, but I think they might be the only people, them and Wall Street, who don't love Social Security. Everyone else loves Social Security, which is why the Republicans spend so much time lying about their plans, right?
Why don't they love it? What's the problem with that big business has with Social Security?
So Wall Street and the broligarchy in Silicon Valley, I think they come at it from slightly different angles. But generally, Wall Street hates things that work. Public education, it works, so they hate it. Social Security, it works, so they hate it. Traditional Medicare, it works, so they hate it. And they don't just hate them, they try to destroy them. Why do they hate things that work? Because they're not making any money off of it, right? Social Security makes nobody money. Elon Musk goes on Joe Rogan's podcast and calls it a Ponzi scheme. Elon Musk, okay, I won't just bring it to being mean to him. A Ponzi scheme is a criminal enterprise that enriches one person, right? And they collapse after some amount of time. Social Security enriches no person. It's not hierarchical at all. So A, it's not a criminal scheme. And B, it's the opposite. Nobody's making money off of it. That's why they hate it. We have trillions of dollars of benefits that are paid out to the people who have paid into the system. It's ours. It was created by working people for working people, and it excludes Wall Street, right? So to put it in perspective, all of what Social Security does, it's an inflation protected annuity, the retirement part. It's also $1 million in long-term disability insurance and life insurance, all in one package, right? And all of it is administered for less than 1% of every premium dollar that's paid in, right? We pay into Social Security. We see it coming out of our paycheck because it's our money. Less than 1 cent of every dollar goes to administer the whole thing. Now, try to find something like that on Wall Street, right? Wall Street sees that as a missed opportunity. They're like, whoa, we'd sock on a 20% fee so we could buy another golden yacht, right? And so it's money. That's why they hate it. Now, the broligarchs in Wall Street, I think, together agree on this, though. They also hate it from this emptiness that they have where their soul should be. It's this black hole. And they have a philosophical hatred of things that we can do together as a community. When we work together, we can produce things like public education, right? We can produce things like Social Security. We take care of ourselves. Elon Musk, again, on that Joe Rogan interview, he literally said that empathy was the downfall of Western civilization. Think of how warped you have to be to think that caring about your neighbor is the bad thing. You're like, no, the only reason we've succeeded is because of caring for our neighbors and our neighbors caring for us. So
but Alex, I want to zero in on that because we have people who really don't appear to like people very much. And it is a badge of honor that they wear. And it's like they don't even want well, aside from him personally, and I'm not cracking, but it's almost as if they don't want us to replicate. Because you can't, you can't sustain yourself with these cuts. With what he calls Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Why? And what is it? Because my great grandmother didn't feel that way about Social Security. And she was a person who worked through the Depression, right? So a lot of her ways I didn't really understand because I didn't see them in the context of a depression. Keeping your money under a mattress, being very, very careful with the banks. The way she would save everything and she canned and things like that until she died, and she was in her 90s. So help me to understand when he says that it's a Ponzi scheme, and we know how that settles on our ears. And you say, no, it's not a Ponzi scheme. What is a Ponzi scheme? Why is this not a Ponzi scheme?
It's quite simple. So I think just pick a Ponzi scheme, right? But I think the one that most people know is Bernie Madoff, right? So this is this Wall Street guy, and he goes in to commit fraud, right? So he is going into this to enrich himself. And so he lies to people and says, give me your money and you'll make a great return on your money. And then he goes to other people and he says the same thing. Now he takes the second tranche of people and he gives that money to the first. And so he says, see, my investments are paying off, but it's all a fraud. It's a fraud based on lies to the people, right? So there is no investment in anything. And again, the purpose of this criminal enterprise is to enrich a person. And as long as it keeps going, as long as you can find the greater fool. As soon as you run out of people to feed money into the system, it collapses. That's a Ponzi scheme. It's a criminal enterprise aimed at enriching a person who's committing fraud. What Social Security is it's literally the opposite of that. What happened, and so maybe I'll just tell this story so you understand. First of all, it's a social insurance program. That's what it's called. So the Great Depression happened because Wall Street collapsed the world economy. And the economy broke in a way that people had never seen before. So you had levels of unemployment that were staggering, right? Like 50% of people out of work. It was like the entire system of capitalism was going to fail. And around the world at the same time, you see the rise of authoritarianism, right? From authoritarianism, you know, like communist authoritarianism and fascist authoritarianism. And what FDR and the New Dealers did in America was they said, okay, something's gone wrong. People don't have jobs. Let's put them back to work. But also, let's figure out how to not just solve this problem now, but build a system that prevents it in the future. So they do many things, but one thing they do, they create the minimum wage, right? They say, no longer are the bosses going to be able to pay a worker starvation wages. If you work an honest day, then you're going to get paid enough to sustain yourself. And it was a living wage. The minimum wage, when it was set up, was a living wage, which is totally not what we have now. They created Social Security, and we're going to return to that. But they also created the right of workers to collectively bargain and form a union so that they could stand up to their bosses. And these are the things that not only dug us out of the Great Depression, but created a framework to prevent another one, which is why Wall Street hates it as well. So let's dig into Social Security. What is Social Security? They decided, the New Dealers were like, we want an American system. America relies on workers getting wages. It's a capitalist society. And to save this capitalist society, we actually have to take into account that people can lose their wages. Sometimes it's through no fault of their own, like when Wall Street causes an economic collapse. But also sometimes when people are retire because they can no longer work. So now they don't have wages. So you replace some of those wages. And over time, we've added more, like if a person faces a life-changing accident or illness and becomes disabled, then that long-term disability, that's a loss of wages and part of them is replaced. For minor surviving children at the death of a breadwinner, the wages of the breadwinner some of the wages are replaced and go to the children. So this system is a social insurance system. Insurance is the key thing here. It's not a Ponzi scheme, which is a criminal enterprise to enrich one person. It's an insurance system where you pay premiums in. We all pay our premiums in, and then we're protected against the loss of wages due to any of those three outcomes. So each generation is actually paying their premiums in, and that goes to pay for people's who are getting their benefits right now. It's called a pay-as-you-go social insurance program. That's how it's set up by design. For 89 years, it's functioned. No one has gotten rich off of it. There's no criminal who it's enriching, and no one is lied to about how it works, right? You're told you pay in if you if you pay in the correct amount or the enough quarters, then you're fully insured. And then if you lose your wages, you will get part of them replaced. And there's a whole bunch more beautiful policy in there, but I don't know how deep you want to go into the policy. But that's a system that we built together. Working people built this. Frances Perkins, who is the first woman in the cabinet, she was the head of DOL. It's her brainchild. The idea actually goes back to to Bismarck in Prussia. And he got it from monks, which is just that if you get people working together, we all put a little bit aside when we are working. And then when we can no longer work, we get money back. But it's because the community keeps going. It's an intergenerational promise, and it's a beautiful thing.
So you keep paying it forward.
Exactly.
So that your children can get it. Okay, that makes sense. It's not being explained that way at all. And now you see, as you say, phew, I hadn't thought of it that way, because Wall Street is always picking. They want the they want the post office. They want to privatize that, but they really want. They have been going after Social Security forever. Why and how close are they to privatization?
Um, the why is that they hate it because it works, because it doesn't make them any money. They would turn it into a privatized Social Security system. By the way, it's happened around the world when billionaires get their way. So you can actually look. You can look at Chile. What happens is one person or a handful of them make billions of dollars. They become inordinately wealthy, and the guy's name is Pena. His brother is actually runs the Cato, or not runs, but he's part of the Cato Institute here in Washington, D.C., which pushes, ta-da, privatization. But then, because it's not a social insurance program, because it's privatized, it fails. They all fail. And they have to flip back to a pay-as-you-go social insurance program. It's the only system that actually works. You can't have a privatized Social Security system. So it's a lie that they can actually do it. You know, they're like, oh, well, the returns from the market. And you're like, well, maybe if you need the money when the market's high, it might work out for you. But the problem is no one can predict where the stock market is going to be tomorrow, or when you might need the money, the wages replaced. And because of that, a privatized system cannot work. Social Security guarantees you a benefit. You know how much money you're going to get, and that it will last until you die. And that's the key. You can't outlive Social Security. It's a guaranteed benefit. Now, for 15 years, I've been doing this, and I'll say I've always confidently been like, you can count on it. You can count on it. This is the first time in my life where I'm like, actually, what they're doing right now makes me question whether you will actually be able to count on all of your checks getting there in full and on time.
In full and on time.
Yeah. And, you know, you are legally owed this money. So what Martin O'Malley is saying, what we say is, make sure right now you can go to myssa.gov. And if you don't have a paper statement already, download and print out a paper statement that has all of your, how much your salaries are, what you've paid in, how much you're owed, and have that piece of paper, because Elon Musk's little minions are in there on the computer with their AI, and they might just change things. They might just fiddle with things. Count on the fact that you are owed that money. It's just that right now, with Donald Trump in the White House and Elon Musk wielding the chainsaw, it's possible that they could be disrupted. That's what Martin O'Malley is saying. That's what I'm hearing from everybody inside, is that already in the disability part, you're seeing service interruptions, right?
Already, like right now.
Already, like today. So where people need to get determination, right? So they need to get actually the paperwork done to receive benefits. In many cases, the office that they need to get the paperwork from has just been eliminated, right? There's no one in that seat anymore.
So what do you do?
It's very difficult to know what to do, but I would start by calling your member of Congress, both your member in the House and both senators. And everyone should call. Everyone should know that's who you call when you have problems with your Social Security benefits, is your elected officials, your federal elected officials. And this is why, you know, this is sort of all, there's a lot of bleakness in what we're talking about, but the hope that I know that I have is because I know how powerful Social Security is, and so do all politicians, Republicans as well. They know that an enormous number, like huge percentages of the phone calls that come into their office are from people who need help with Social Security in one way or another. And that's when Social Security is functioning really, really well, right? So imagine what's going to happen when the checks stop hitting the bank on time and in full, or a person is given, a literal Kafka-esque bureaucratic situation where they need to get some piece of paper signed by somebody who doesn't exist anymore, right? That the members of Congress are terrified of what Elon Musk is doing because they know that it's they're going to be held to account. It's them who are going to be sent packing. And we're talking specifically about Social Security, but it's the same thing with Medicaid, right? They're talking about cutting $880 billion out of Medicaid. There's 17 frontline Republicans right now who won by fewer people. So like in Iowa's 1st district, Representative Miller Meeks, she won by 700 votes, I think. It's either 700 or 800 votes, but hundreds of votes. And if she gets her way, 59,000 of her constituents lose health care, right? So like 17 frontline Republicans, these are the ones who are in the closest districts, they won by fewer people than will lose health care if they get their way, right? Those are people who will lose their job. And they know that. And they know that breaking Social Security is I don't want to get like too much into it, but it's what I believe. It's breaking a sacred bond. This is a birthright that Americans have counted on for 90 years. It's a promise between generations, from your grandmother to your mother to you, right? And on and on. It's a promise between generations. And so to have somebody just come in and break that promise, the fury is going to be so immense that I don't think Washington, D.C. is ready for it.
We're talking with Alex Lawson of Social Security Works. He's helping us to understand what is happening with Social Security, why the president mentioned it, talked about it. You said for 15 minutes. I've watched the speech twice. So I said, he is drilling down on Social Security. That is on the chopping block.
Absolutely.
And I think we need to be clear on that. I don't care what he's saying is on the chopping block. So what did the world look like without Social Security? I mean, because I think that many of us don't, well, we can't envision the Depression, but it was a time of great social, political, and cultural tumult because people were not eating. I mean, you had communists, you had socialists, you had everybody, and they were sitting in on the mall. I mean, that predated Resurrection City of the Poor People's Campaign, right? Because people, white people, Alex, could not believe that they had been so abused by the oligarchs. I mean, what did the world look like without Social Security?
It's a great question. There's like two parts. You set it up really well. But let's talk about actually just before even the Great Depression. So before the crisis that Wall Street caused, you're talking about senior poverty levels of 1 and 2. 50% of seniors lived in poverty in America. And this is after, in most cases, after a lifetime of hard work. I should point out that primarily the poorest or those hit hardest are older women, because what it is they didn't, they weren't allowed in the workforce. So generally it was their husband who was earning the wages. Then the husband dies. Women on average live longer than men. And then they don't have family who will take care of them. And there was no system. So they just, what we had was called the poorhouse.
Yes.
I do this setup all the time, so I hope it's still entertaining or whatever, informative. On the original Monopoly board, there used to be 2 bad spaces. And the original Monopoly game was a critique of Wall Street capitalism, by the way. The history is fascinating. But there was jail and then the poorhouse. And those were the 2. And you didn't want to go to the poorhouse because in reality and in the game, they lock the door at night, right? So it's a debtor's prison. And it was filled primarily with older women who did not have any family to take care of them, the setup that I said before. And families used to, scare their children. You work hard or you're going to end up in the poorhouse. There's poorhouses in every state in the nation, and except for New Mexico, which I've never been able to figure out why they didn't have one, but I think it's because they didn't have many people. But the point is, the poorhouse was a part of our culture, and then Social Security. No more poorhouses. We dropped the level of senior poverty down by enormous amounts. After Medicare, which is the 60s, you actually get senior poverty rates down to in line with the general population. But just with Social Security, you eliminate the concept of the poorhouse. It's basically evaporated from our, right? Like most people have never even heard of it. That's what Social Security did. It created a system where if you play by the rules, you pay into the system's going to be there for you when you need it, when you no longer have wages because you retire. So I always end by saying, I think everyone gets it, but you know what the poorhouse is on a Monopoly board today? Can you picture the board? Free parking, right? So that's what I always say. From the poorhouse to free parking, that's what Social Security means for this country. And the profundity of the change was and continues to be immense, because the idea that we are taking care of ourselves, that we don't need to rely on Wall Street, on any politician. In fact, we know we can't rely on them. We have to take care of ourselves. And that's why we built Social Security, by working people for working people, which is why the billionaire elite, they hate it. They hate it because it works so well at demonstrating that we don't need them, that in fact, they're the problems. The billionaires are the problems. And I think I'll sort of end with this. I don't want to give your audience too much, but the only problem with Social Security is that Elon Musk does not pay the same rate into Social Security as the rest of us. He pays a teeny tiny percentage into Social Security because people only pay in on the first $176,000 of income. And because of that fact, Social Security is imbalanced. But it's a simple fix. Billionaires are the problem. And so just making Elon Musk pay the same rate as everybody else fixes the whole problem. Not only fixes it, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have a bill that does it. They get Elon Musk to pay the same rate on all of his income, just like the rest of us do. And then everybody's benefits are expanded by $200 a month. So they get $2,400 more a month. And, you know, I talk to retired workers all the time. You know, you're telling me someone who has built cars for a living, you know, working hard every day, that they could afford to pay in on all of their income, but somehow a billionaire, it's going to really hurt. You know, it's going to take away from them. Come on. So that's the solution. And I want to also say that's why Elon Musk is destroying Social Security. He doesn't want to pay in on all of his income. He's like, I don't need Social Security, so I'm going to destroy it for the rest of you because I don't want to pay into this system. In fact, I want to take the money out. I want it in my pocket, in the form of tax handouts.
We're talking with Alex Lawson. Social Security works. It works. It works. It works. But it's not collapsing. It's being collapsed. Would that be a fair way of putting it?
I mean, Elon Musk is destroying it, and that is what's going on right now.
Okay, let's project out. Martin O'Malley, former head of Social Security, responsible guy. I don't have to agree with him about everything, but look, he headed Social Security, and he maintained it. He sustained it, right? He says, everybody save your money. 30 to 60 days, these checks are going to slow down. They're going to be cut. All kinds of things are happening. I mean, and I keep going back to this because I was so stunned when I read that. Alex, I said, wait a minute. What is going to happen out here? Will we have the Hunger Games? Because people are not going to be able to eat. What? What will it look like when in April, right? On the outside, if not in another 4 weeks, with all of the dislodging, because these are people who are trying to get folks. They're trying to take out the government workers who'll be who'll be doing the work. Oh my gosh, what will it look like? I mean, just what do you speculate that it could look like with no checks coming? I mean, people are waiting for that check. You know that. You know when the at the grocery store when people have gotten the checks. I mean, I've heard the cashier say, "Oh no, these folks got their checks today, so the line is going to be long." Or I know why the line is long.
Yeah, I mean, first off, what you're talking about is $15,000, right? Like, I just want to say the problem with Social Security is that benefits are too low. So average benefits, you're talking about people who are living on $15,000, right? Like, I want to see a billionaire try to live on that at all, right? They would be let's put a reality TV show together. But you have millions of people who Social Security is their only source of income, right? Tens of millions of people. It's actually accounts for more than 90% of their income. That's how they calculate it. But we're talking about people who have no other source of income than their very, very modest Social Security benefit. And they have, I mean, real people. That's the problem with DC. They don't know real people. They literally, right? They just don't. Like Elon Musk is absolutely, or Donald Trump. I mean, these people who grew up with golden toilets and emerald mines, like they've never met real people. Now, real people trying to live on these modest benefits, they have their costs calculated out to the penny, right? Like they know when they can go and get the deals at the grocery store, right? And so to disrupt that, even 1 month of disruption, you're talking about possibly, an 89-year-old who just will have zero. They'll have zero money. And the problem is it's not going to happen in a very systematized way, right? Because they came in and they smashed up the agency. And so it's going to be really haphazard. Like no one will know if their check is going to be there next month. And the terror of not knowing and not being able to rely on it versus the security that comes with Social Security never having missed a payment, right? That was that's why it's in the word security, right? It's because that is really important for people to be able to live, to know that it's going to be there for them. And I can no longer say that that they can know that it's going to be there for them. If they don't reverse course, so not just stop what they're doing, but they have to hire people back. And if they don't do that, the system is not going, it's going to sputter and fail in different ways. And then they're going to be trying to put out fires, right? And so they'll be trying to address this problem, but another one will pop up. And at the whole time, you don't get a check. So you're like, I'm going to go to my Social Security office. They're closing your office, right? That's part of the game.
So you have no place to go.
You got no place to go. You got no one to talk to. They just got rid of everyone who answered the phones. So what you got to do before that happens is call your members of Congress now and say, you better not let this happen. And that is I'm reading your comments from your listeners. I don't know if we want to.
No, please. Musk makes $8 million a day from U.S. government contracts. In fact, he's overseeing agencies. I mean, look, the Pentagon has failed 7 consecutive audits.
Yeah.
And but that's where he gets his money from. But no one's touching that, and no one's legacy media are not talking about it. And I just think that, to me, that is such an abdication of their responsibilities. And please, we can go through these comments because everybody is touched by Social Security.
Don't get me started on the corporate media because this is their thing. They're going. They love this. And the corporate media is never going to tell us the truth about this because, look at the advertisements in between corporate media shows, and you're going to see who the real bosses are. It's the people who buy the ads. So we need to have truth tellers like you getting the word out directly to people. But at a point, the story becomes big enough that even the corporate media has to start covering it. And that's what's happening right now, is that, with President Trump, I think the moment of moments for me of just like the brazenness is when he's like, and no more unelected bureaucrats are gonna, and the camera panned to Elon Musk. And you're like, that's the unelected bureaucrat that I'm scared. I'm not scared of the NOAA, the guy at the atmospheric agency who's telling me when hurricanes are going to happen that you fired. I'm worried you fired him. The only unelected bureaucrat I'm really worried about is Elon Musk.
And no pundit on television talked about it. I watched them. Nobody said anything. And look, hey, I started in television punditry on Fox. Interestingly enough, I had more political space there, right? I really did. That having been said, there were some lines you knew in corporate media that if you wanted to get your bigger message out, you got to be crafty. I also learned that from my father, from Reverend Jackson. They're like, you can't say everything that you know, but you have to find a creative way of saying things, which is the real deal. And what is unsettling to me, I don't realize I only have about 3 or 4 minutes left with you. And I want people to call 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. That is, excuse me, that's Congress, both houses. You must call these legislators and let them know what you're thinking. But you also need to call the White House. Because see, what concerns me is the social unrest. Because you have people, I heard last night, and I've been trying to chase it down, but I do believe it, that Speaker Johnson has asked the Republicans, and he should be Speaker of the whole House, not just of the Republicans. Don't have these town hall meetings. Alex.
Oh, he definitely told them that. He said, don't have the town hall meetings. I mean, this is all authoritarian, power grab. They're going by a playbook, but the people, we have our own playbook. And so like, if they're not going to have town halls, like we'll have town halls in their districts. We'll go to the 17 frontline members and hold town halls without them. Let their people know. We've been driving billboard trucks through all of the districts saying, why is, Representative Miller Meeks helping the world's richest person steal your Social Security and Medicaid? And we'll have rallies at their Social Security offices. I know that Senator Bernie Sanders has gone to these districts and held rallies with thousands of people. And I know that there are some other members who are going to do the same thing because the Republicans are in total control of government right now, right? So they have the White House, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. That's what's different from the first term. But I will also say their majorities are teeny tiny,
and you can't leave. I was trying to explain to someone, they were trying to get in touch with my brother to do something. I said, you don't know what the atmosphere is up there. I worked up there when I was in college. Things completely changed since then. That was more than 30 years ago. Now, you can't leave the Hill because the margins are so tight. One of his colleagues was on maternity leave. I mean, like she just had her baby. Mm-hmm. She just had her baby. She really ought to be at home. For health reasons, she really ought to be at home. No, she had to go in there with her baby in arms because at this point, she can't give her baby to anyone else. She's got to have her baby with her. People are leaving the hospital. I mean, they're being wheeled in. That's what happened with Congressman Al Green, just a couple of months ago. It is a really crazy atmosphere. And then you've got the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys hovering around the Capitol. And, really, many of these congresspersons who won by the hair of their chinny chin chins, they're really worried. I mean, before you go, what do you see? Because I am anxious about social unrest.
Mm-hmm.
That's what worries me, and using that as an excuse to impose restrictions, if not outright martial law.
And I think we should be worried about that, but I think we also should look to South Korea when what happened when the president tried to become a dictator there, tried to have the military, right, and the people said no, and that's the key. And we should also look at Representative Al Green, right? Like you brought him up, and what he did yesterday was he said no. He said, you don't have a mandate to destroy Medicaid. No one gave you a mandate to destroy Medicaid. And so, yes, it is scary times. And yes, we should be worried about what is clearly an authoritarian takeover of our democracy.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we should remember that none of us are alone. There are tens of millions of us who say no, you're not going to steal my Social Security. You're not going to steal my Medicaid. You're not going to steal my democracy. And I believe that the fear that they're trying to get us to kneel in fear, and instead we have to stand with our neighbors in bravery. And when we do that, authoritarians are just bullies, and so they crumble when they're stood up to. And that's what we have to do.
Alex Lawson, Social Security Works, 202-224-3121. Call your representatives, but also call the White House. They have not automated that system. There is an operator who does answer there, and you need to call them and let them know what it is that you want, because the government is up for and by us. That's all I can say. Alex Lawson, keep doing what you're doing. Know that you have a home on this show, because I think in the next 30, 60, 90 days, we need to have our eyes open. How can we support you and what you're doing?
You can find us socialsecurityworks.org. That's a great place to start. But on all social media, we prefer Blue Sky and Facebook. Just find Social Security Works. Our name is simple. It's a truth telling, right? Social Security Works. And I had a great time on the show, so I would love to come back and update you. And I'll update you through the bleak times, but I'm also really looking forward to that show when we are laughing at the downfall of these authoritarians, when the people stand up and take our power back.
Well, when we do that, we'll be able to do that. Alex Lawson, keep doing what you're doing. Know that you have a home on the Santita Jackson Show. Know that. Blessings to you.
Thank you so much.
And your beautiful family. Go meet Social Security Works over on Blue Sky, and me too. Many of us are shifting over there, so get on over there, and please give them your support. Support them as they support us. Let's break down the State of the Union address in the next hour on the Santita Jackson Show. Blessings, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota.